Have you ever pulled an all-nighter and felt your brain turn to mush by morning? Now try to imagine going days and days without any sleep at all. What would that do to your mind and body? Well, back in the 1940s, some Russian scientists ran a crazy experiment, so stay tuned to find out. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, we'll be diving into the dark story behind the infamous Russian sleep experiment. Expect more videos like this where I cover dark, mysterious, and shocking stories. So if you're a fan of disturbing tales, buckle the hell up. This is going to be a wild ride. The Russian sleep experiment has become the stuff of legends, an urban myth that's inspired horror films, creepypastas, and conspiracy theories. But is it real? What actually happened in that top secret Soviet lab all those years ago? By the end of this, you'll be grateful that this type of war is over. So kill the lights and get ready for a deep dive into this iconic story. Alright, let's start at the beginning. The Russian sleep experiment allegedly took place in the 1940s. World War II has just ended and Russia was seeking a tactical advantage over its enemies. The idea? To create super soldiers using extreme sleep deprivation to be an unstoppable machine. Some shady Russian scientists convinced the military it was a genius idea. Keeping soldiers awake for days on end would make them unstoppable, they claimed. Of course, it's totally crossed ethical lines about torture and human rights, but ethics weren't too important to the Soviets back then. Results were all that mattered. So the scientists got funding and rounded up their human political guinea pigs. They picked up 5 political prisoners and made them an offer. Stay awake for 15 straight days in a secret experiment, and you'll get your freedom back. Sounded like a great deal to these desperate politicians, who signed right up. Too bad they had no clue what they were in for. Scientists prepared an isolation chamber to run the testing. In the chamber, they were testing out an experimental stimulant gas, which the test subjects would be undergoing. Closed-circuit cameras didn't really exist back then, so the only type of equipment they used was microphones. The only way they could observe the subjects was through the 5-inch thick porthole window. The chamber had chairs, boxes of dry food, boxes of water, toilet, a sink, and a shelf of books, which was the only form of entertainment they had. On day 1, the subjects entered the chamber. Everyone was optimistic about getting their lives back. Scientists told them to stay strong and freedom would come soon. First few days actually weren't too bad. Prisoners got restless, but nothing crazy happened yet. By day 5, things started getting weird. Prisoners became paranoid, twitchy, and delirious. Some reported seeing shapes and shadows moving around. The test subjects would stop talking to each other and wouldn't even look at each other. Total isolation was chipping away at their sanity, bit by bit. Each prisoner would whisper into the mic, somehow believing that they have tried ratting out their comrades. They would be freed. By day 9, most prisoners have gone off the deep end. They were hallucinating big time about visions no one else could see. One political prisoner running and screaming around the chamber. A couple of others were ripping pieces of paper, soaking the pieces of paper, and plastering on the porthole. One man was convinced his skin was covered in bugs and tore chunks of his own flesh off. Another prisoner clawed out his own eyeballs because he thought cameras were watching him everywhere. Even with his thoughts to keep him company, his mind created vivid imagery, horrors. Sleep deprivation was breaking these guys hard and fast. Of course, the scientists took 0 steps to help the prisoners. They coldly documented the nightmarish transformation. Pleased with the promising data they were collecting, these researchers had clearly left ethics and common decency behind long ago. Now, day 15, the scientists didn't hear a word from the subjects. The chamber was completely silent. They were confused if the microphones were still working or not, if they were dead or alive. With the pieces of paper plastered on the porthole, the scientists couldn't see anything. So to get a reaction from them, they used the intercom to get their attention. Hey, we are coming in to test the microphones. Everyone needs to lie down facing the ground. And if you comply, we will offer one of your guys freedom. There was a brief moment, and then one of the subjects came up and spoke into the microphone. We no longer want to be free. With the scientists now knowing that they were still alive, they did not need to go inside the chamber. After 15 sleepless days, the experiment was over and the scientists started to flush the gas out of the chamber. The minute they started to flush the gas, you could hear screaming and whimpering from the test subjects. begging the scientists to turn the gas back on. After they opened the chamber, the test subjects were far from human anymore. They had disfigured themselves completely. With some subjects missing pieces of their flesh, a couple of others couldn't speak because they had torn their vocal cords, only howled or whimpered. When the scientists came in, they had got a demonic surprise. Prisoners went berserk, attacking viciously like rabid beasts. It was a total mayhem, biting, clawing, you name it. The researchers had to use lethal force just to make it out alive. Picture those last moments from the prisoner's perspective. Betrayed and tortured for 2 weeks straight, only to be shot down in the end. They had been warped into vicious creatures by the prolonged sleep deprivation. Whatever humanity they had left was now long gone. Of course, the military kept a tight lid on the grisly details after it all went down. The whole messed up project was classified as top secret and buried from public knowledge. They were aware that news like this couldn't ever see the light of day. They'd never hear the end of it from the public. But over time, whispers of the sadistic Russian sleep experiment spread through the grapevine. The story was just too shocking and creepy not to spark rumors. People were both horrified and fascinated by the notion that scientists could push ethical boundaries so far. In the aftermath, little was known about what happened to the lead scientist. With the experiment hushed up nice and tidy, they likely went on their merry way, cooking up more morally questionable studies for Russia. It wasn't until after the Cold War that the creepy legend of the Russian sleep experiment truly captured the public imagination. The story alone was disturbing enough to gain traction and stick around in pop culture. It's not hard to see why this grim tale has struck such a chord. It got all the ingredients for a chilling horror story. Torture, madness, and humans stripped of dignity and sanity. Definitely fires up the imagination, even if the details are hazy. Part of why it resonates is it makes up front darker parts of human nature. When pushed to extremes, how quickly can any of our minds snap? Are we all just conditioned animals deep down? These kinds of deep philosophical questions makes you question the morality some people have. It also serves as a warning about science gone too far. When researchers leave ethics and compassion behind, there's no limit to the suffering that can inflict in the name of progress. The Russian sleep experiment took that to the bone-chilling extremes. The legend has inspired tons of creepy books, movies, and internet chatter. The gaps in story let imagination run wild with sinister possibilities. It's become the quintessential campfire tale for the digital age. Nowadays, most agree this experiment likely never went down, quite like the legends tell it. Concrete facts are just too scary, but as a morality tale, it remains as potent as ever. Whether Soviet prisoners were actually kept awake for 15 straight days isn't really the point. The legend serves a deeper purpose, posing philosophical questions about human nature and ethics. It makes us ask, could such a nightmarish study happen today? Have we really progressed that far? Or are dark impulses still there under the surfaces? Do we place too much faith in institutions to always do the right thing? Those doubts nag at us, and beyond secretive programs, themes ring true about human psychology. Push anyone far enough and the mind starts to fray at the edges. We all have a bit of madness within, given the right or wrong circumstances to unleash it. This story presses on real pressure point isolation, sleep deprivation, and hallucination. It evokes some of our deepest anxieties, so while factual accuracy may be slippery, the Russian sleep experiment endures as a metaphor. It poses tough ethical questions that never lose relevance. How far is too far in the name of progress? Where is our morally breaking point? It definitely prods our conscience, and it warns us not to get complacent. Assuming human nature or ethics have advanced beyond such darkness could make history repeat itself. We must actively cultivate our principles against the backdrop of flawed human wiring. And that's a wrap on the chilling legend of the Russian sleep experiment. We hope this video gave you some food for thought about human ethics and our fragile grip on sanity. Now we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the experiment and its impact on science and culture? Have you heard of the Russian sleep experiment before? And if so, how has it affected you? Let us know in the comment below and hit that like button. Our goal today is to hit 5 likes and subscribe to my channel for more fascinating explorations of dark, mysterious, and shocking stories. Thanks for watching.